Hi, welcome to BioStock Studio. On the 1st of May this year, Theis Kipling assumed the position as CEO of Biovica, and he's joining us today to tell us a little bit more about his background and where the company stands today. Welcome.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
So we'll start there with your background. You have a commercial background. You came from Devicer Diagnostics as the CCO. What does that experience bring you to Biovica that the company needs?
I think if you look at many of the companies who really doesn't make it, despite having a great product, is because they don't find the code to commercially break through into markets, right? And that's what I've spent most of my career solving. Also, most recently with Devicer, where I was Chief Commercial Officer since 4 years, and during that tenure we tripled, and been Chief Commercial Officer with Atlas Antibodies, where we also had a good stint, and before that, been doing many of the same things with the large American company Agilent across different markets. So that's essentially what I know I can do, and I feel confident also about doing this again here at Biovica.
And turning the question slightly the other way around, what was it about Biovica that attracted you?
Yeah, I think there's the company I've actually followed since quite many years already. Looking at Biovica, I think it's a fantastic company, and especially if you look into the assets that they have. So they have a very, very strong pharma business that you don't find many other places actually, right? And that is highly sticky and very repetitive, and it has a lot of potential. On the other hand, they have invested big time into setting up a CLIA laboratory in San Diego, which again, not many similar companies actually do have. They have CLIA certified, and they have CAP accreditations and license to sell across all 50 states, including New York, which is actually notoriously very, very difficult. And then they have a highly substantiated product with the DiviTum. So there are three very core foundations of the company that I truly believe are set to succeed in the future. So that's essentially why.
So like you said here, you're stepping into a company that has an FDA-cleared technology, strong clinical evidence, and a partnership with Tempus. But commercial traction has been somewhat slower to materialize, I should say. What is your explanation for this gap between the clinical validity and this sort of commercial breakthrough?
Yeah, great question, and I'm sure that's a question many of the viewers also have. We have more than 5,000 patients, including our clinical trial program, which is a lot. And that tells us, across all the various studies that have been published, that we know that the product works. That's a great starting point. When you want to break into the big American US market of oncology especially, 5,000 patients is good, but it's not really enough to really make the final breakthrough. And I think that's part of the explanation, that we are not done. Even though we have a lot of evidence, we know it works. It's not a question if it works, but there's still a way to go to really establish full utility of the product. And that will also, we will talk about in my future here of getting into standard of care. It's not just a commercial breakthrough, it's really changing and becoming standard of care. And that will take us some years. So essentially, my conclusion here is that there's no magic trick. This won't happen overnight, over 1 year. This is going to be a long but upward going curve that we will be chasing with disciplined actions.
And I mentioned the partnership there with Tempus, and that's central to this US commercialization that you were talking about. How do you plan to measure whether that partnership is successful or not?
Yeah, Tempus obviously is unique, super successful, admirable company. And working with partners is something I've successfully done also in the past. And that past also tells me that it can take a lot of time, right? And just having an agreement is not the same as commercial success. So being just 6 weeks into the role, this is naturally something I'm tuning very much into. And I got past experience and tools an experience to work with such companies. These are, large companies with a ton of different priorities. And some of those priorities is also the explanation for why we haven't yet seen commercial traction, which relates to some of their internal delays on their own product launches that they were supposed to hook DiviTum up to. But still, the team have done phenomenally well actually to establish the partnership. That's really difficult and it's an important first step. But it's a long journey from here to really, keep them on the ball, make everybody convinced, and essentially show commercial success.
And last autumn, Biovica withdrew its financial targets, citing the delays in the US clinical studies, slower than expected pipeline maturation. When, like you said, you're only 6 weeks into the role, but when do you think that you'll be able to or feel ready to set new targets? And what do you need to have in place before you can do that?
That's something we continue to look into and also discuss internally. Being 6 weeks in, I'm still in the listening mode. I have learned a lot, and I've seen a lot of really, highly impressive things that is truly convincing to me, and also reconfirms that I took the right decision of joining Biovica. That being said, I think there's quite some way still before I will, on behalf of the company, come out with any guidance. I think there are so many opportunities that we are looking into. There are, essentially binary. So I will need to see and stay in my listening mode before I can, confirm further to the market.
And as a final question, then, if we look ahead, let's say 12 to 18 months, which things do you, from the position of 6 weeks into the role, what things have to go right for Biovica to sort of go to the next level?
There are several things. We know the product works. And for us now, it's really to continue that clinical adoption, having more and more of the tier one accounts in the US, which we have really good success with, working with. And we know that we have a high stickiness and retention rate of them coming back. That needs to continue. And then we have a very promising pharma business with, very, more than 20 different partnerships going, 30 plus projects. And some of them are actually reaching phase 3 development, which is close to actually engaging potentially with us on companion diagnostic collaboration. And that also is truly exciting. But it's not something that has happened in either of the two blocks, right? So we will now, going back to disciplined execution, keeping control of the money box, keeping control of the costs, and track with high diligence on the commercial opportunities and make sure that we, one by one, we turn them into success and a successful outcome for the company.
Well, thank you so much, Theis, for coming here and telling us more about it.
Thanks a lot for having me again.